on time, the Leadoff morning show. Getting you ready to go for your sports weekend. Time to hit the flow. Wake up to the buzz. Pod hits like a glove. Feel that adrenaline rush. No time to hurry.
Happy Saturday and welcome to brought to you by Apogee Grafix, bringing your vision to new heights. Go to apogeegrafix.com and use promo code PEAK1 for 10% off your order. I'm Ashton, getting you ready for your sports weekend. Thank you for listening. However, you are tuning in. A little bit of a late night last night. If you've been following Peak One Sports on social media or watching on YouTube, of course, it's football season. So we produced some Texas high school football last night on Friday Night Football and Peak One Sports. Man, it was a great game. What a great game. We obviously call games for Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD here in Fort Worth, Texas. And last night we had our first game this season covering the Chisholm Trail Rangers, and they were facing OD Wyatt. I'm not going to give away any spoilers because I want you to do me a favor. As soon as you're done watching this episode of the Leadoff, go ahead and like the episode, share the episode if you want. Make sure you're subscribed to Peak One Sports. But as soon as this episode is over, go check out that game. Just click over. It might suggest it, but just click back on the Peak One Sports page on YouTube. Go to live, and you'll see it right there near the top. OD Wyatt versus Chisholm Trail, Week 3 Friday Night Football. Man, these two teams, it's Texas high school football, so it's it's going to be great, and these two teams aren't powerhouses by any sense of the word. Chisholm Trail, just say they were 2-0 before last night's game. No spoiler alert, but this game, had it all. There were times that we thought this was going to be a shootout back and forth, and then both defenses step up and stall some of the offensive production throughout the game. There was resilience by both teams. Just a big heavyweight matchup, and then near the end of the game, you think it's going one way and it goes completely the other way. If you're a fan of football or a fan of sports in general, that's what you want to see. That's the type of matchup you want to see. It was not huge rivals. Maybe they have a little rivalry brewing now because of that of last night's game, but it is a district game. It was their first district game of the season. It was just a great game. So as soon as you're done watching this, go over find Friday Night Football, last night's game, and watch it. I promise you won't be disappointed. And also, I've noticed we've been getting a lot more subscriptions on our YouTube page from Friday Night Football. So if you're new to the channel, or this is the first time you've watched the Leadoff or one of our many other great shows here on the Peak One Sports Network, comment down below and say, hey, subscribe, watching Friday Night Football, decided to check it out. Let us know where you're from, kind of help us get that algorithm, because this is our second season doing Friday Night Football. Last year, we definitely had a lot of carryover from people commenting on during our games, and whether they're parents or relatives or just alumni of the schools of the games we called. We definitely remembered y'all's names. Like when y'all comment, we make it a point to, especially when you comment multiple times, to remember y'all. We recognize y'all's names and usernames. So we definitely had a lot of carryover on, people watching the sports page and the Leadoff and other shows here on the network that we recognize from Friday Night Football. But definitely comment and let us know. We'll give you a shout out if we can, maybe on the next show. Not all of our shows are live, but definitely give you a call out. Today we're going to talk some NFL football, obviously. Going to talk a little bit about the Tua situation in Miami. More conference realignment, college football updates. and we're going to get into it. But first, say goodbye to unruly behavior and hello to a well-mannered pup. The Dapper Dog Academy stands out as a top-notch canine training institute located in Cleburne and serving the DFW Metroplex. You can contact Korri and the Dapper Dog Academy on Facebook or call and schedule a consultation today. All the info's in the description box below. And look, the Dapper Dog Academy, we worked with them with our Golden Retriever Barkley. They do great work. Trying to get back to regular training schedule. We had a few lessons, saw a night and day difference almost immediately. Did have an incident with my dog getting bit by a snake. A little bit serious at the time. He made it through all great. So obviously he needed a break from that. And then, those vet bills aren't cheap. So we're trying to get back with the Dapper Dog Academy. But go ahead and give them a shout out if you live in the North Texas area. Definitely we searched around, and dog training is expensive. And I get it. I mean, dogs are pets in general are part of the family, and I understand you want really, and it's a lot of hard work. Let's not just say, hey, there's a high supply or high demand for this, and it's worth it. It definitely is worth it, but these dog trainers do a lot of work and a lot of good work. So you don't say you don't train or you don't pay for the people to do the work they're doing. You pay for all the years of experience. That's definitely the case at the Dapper Dog Academy. Okay, before we get into it, I want to give a shout out to some of our new paid subscribers. We have some paid subscribers on YouTube. If you want to go, you can look at our membership options. A couple different tiers, very cheap, couple bucks a month if you want, and you're going to have some access to some exclusive content coming up. So we do have some of that content coming up for these members. This week's subscribers: Jason, Adrian, Clay, and Aaron. If you want to leave us a message, if you want us to shout out your last name, I didn't know if they wanted that. So I just gave first names only. But hey, if you want to shout out as a paid subscriber, full name and everything, comment and let us know. Okay. Follow, obviously, usually have Tony and Landon on. I gave Tony the day off. I told him he could jump on if he wanted to, but like I said, we had a late night. We were up at Ranger Stadium in Fort Worth till about midnight last night. Quick turnaround. I know the show premieres at 9 a.m., but we really recorded a couple hours earlier. So it's really early morning here in Fort Worth at the time we record this. Let's jump into the Tua situation. So, of course, Dolphins quarterback suffered his third diagnosed concussion of his NFL career on Thursday night against the Bills after making contact with Damar Hamlin. I say third diagnosed. There was some, controversy on when Tua had that really bad concussion where he, his hands were like tightening up, and excuse me for not using correct terminology during this story, because I don't pretend to, know all the medical terminology, be an expert, but that really bad concussion. I know people went back to, I think that was a Thursday night game as well, but they went back to Sunday or whenever the game was before. And they think Tua had a concussion and he played anyway, So this is the third diagnosed. He had one at Bama. So I think the first one, Bama, and two technically diagnosed in the NFL. And these have been bad. Okay. I say a lot of concussions, not that they're not serious. It's always serious. But you don't really know. I mean, the refs might see something, or somebody in the booth might say, hey, this guy's stumbling around. He's acting weird. He's whatever. And they take him to concussion protocol. Tua's concussions, these two major ones, again, excuse me for using the word major, because it's any concussion, head injury is major. But these more severe concussions, I mean, he's on the ground. Like I said, his hands are like he's throwing up gang signs, And again, I don't remember the term for that, but it's a common thing that happens when you have a severe concussion. But he's contorting in different ways. So it just seems like they're really. I don't know if he's more prone to it. I know when you get concussions, you're more prone to get more concussions, but these are some of the worst that I've seen just watching football, like professional football, anyways. Um, a lot of people are saying he should probably retire. I don't know if that's even like in his mind that he's thinking about that right now. It's obviously what the media is talking about. A lot of people say he should retire, and that's easy to say. Take care of your health, take care of your body. You've made what was he guaranteed in his contract? 90 million. So he's made his money. He can still stay in football, coaching, whatever. Uh, People compare him to Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck had similar, not with concussions, but he just had a lot of bad injuries, and he hung him up early to prolong his I want to say life, but just his body to be able to do things in life and with his family and things like that. So that's comparing it to that, but we don't know what's into his mind. I mean, you're playing football your whole life, literally living and breathing football. If you end up in the NFL, because that means you were really good in college, you were more than likely a star in the NFL, and you knew you had a future in football, so you're living and breathing football your whole life, and he's only been in pro for a few, like what, 4 years now, and to just say, yeah, just hanging up, just retire makes sense. Like it's easy for other people to say, and maybe we get that. That was kind of how the Andrew Luck retirement announcement came, just randomly in the middle. I think it was on in the middle of some games on Sunday. Not that that's how this will turn out. He may finish out the year, then retire. He may, play a long career. I know we've seen other players like Troy Aikman, had to hang him up relatively early. I mean, he played 10 years in the NFL, um, to obviously not to that point, but similar with the concussions. Excuse me. Like I said, it was a late night. All right, Bills obviously win that game 31-10, and that might be kind of you know the right term, but adding insult to injury, where the Dolphins lose their quarterback for, I assume, at least a game. I don't know if he's got that extra couple of days because it was Thursday night football, so who knows? But you're competing, you're a contending team in the East, and outside chance of coming out of the AFC, and you play a division rival and lose 31-10, and it wasn't necessarily because Tua was injured, because he played most of the game. So yeah, not looking good for the Dolphins right now. We'll see if they can get Tua back, if they can get back in the swing of things very early in the season. All right, Saints at Cowboys, noon tomorrow. Going back to last week in Cleveland. Overall good game. Pretty surprised how well they played. I thought it was gonna be much closer. Cowboys D looked really good. DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons both in the top 5 for NFL pressures so far this season. D-Law and newcomer Eric Kendricks both had 2 sacks. Parsons had another sack. No complaints from the defense at all. I mean, really, more or less pitching a shutout most of the game. I know they got the early 3, but that was really 3 and out for the Cowboys after a penalty, knocked him down early in the game, or knocked him back early in the game. Then a good punt return by Cleveland. They had the ball at like the 50-yard line, or past the 50. So defense did good to hold them to just a field goal. And then I know they scored late in garbage time. Offense took a while to get going. Running game was surprisingly efficient. I like how Zeke looked better than I thought. We talked about it the other day. That first play from scrimmage, and Zeke leaps over the guy, kind of looking like vintage Zeke, and they called it back with a penalty. I mean, he gained like 4 or 5 yards on that play, but it was fun to see. I thought, man, it did not look easy to jump over that guy. Zeke used to just look like, he hurdled in high school, ran the hurdles in high school, and he made it look effortless. Uh, that leap on Sunday did not look effortless. He definitely looked like it tired him out a little bit. But I mean, it's at least good to see because I think the bar was set so low for Zeke that we're just kind of excited that looked okay yards per carry wise. I still think if they go the rest of the season with him carrying the ball that much, we might be in trouble. But I get it. They were up most of the game. They ran the ball a lot more, so that's probably more of effect of that. But Zeke 40 yards, did score a touchdown. He's I think that was his 80th touchdown, and he's now in Cowboys history just the third running back to score that many touchdowns behind Tony Dorsett and Emmitt Smith. So good company to be with. And I think that just shows how dominant Zeke was his first few years. That he kind of just fell off a cliff after about year 4, maybe a couple years into or a couple games into year 5. That he accumulated all those stats early on. So now he's kind of reaping the rewards of that. Dak looked okay too. I mean, stat wise, I think he would have had more yards if they weren't up 2 scores most of the game. I mean, that's just what you get. If people want to say, when Dak throws for 400 yards or has these inflated stats, if they want to say, well, they were trailing most of the game or you know, they were down a couple of scores in the fourth. These are garbage time stats. Sure, that's valid, but you have to also say he had 149 yards, whatever, passing because they were up by a lot. He obviously, if it was a closer game, he probably would have passed more, probably would have gotten that 200-yard mark. I get it. Dak's the highest paid player in NFL history, which will probably only stick, probably not even the rest of this season. For sure not next offseason. Somebody will surpass him. And, 2 years into this contract, he'll probably be the 5th or 6th highest paid player at that point. But that's not what you want to see from the highest paid player. You want to see him go out and dominate. And, it was kind of a weird game for the offense. To me, like looking back, it didn't feel like they played really well. But when you go back and look at the stats, they did okay. I think the defense was really prevalent for this game where, obviously you had a punt return for a touchdown. So the offense didn't, score a ton of points. But the defense definitely helped out. All right, some other games around the NFL. You have notable games, anyways. Chiefs, Bengals. That's always going to be a good one. Burrows, Mahomes. They hadn't faced off in the playoffs in a couple of years, but back and forth, some good games. You have Bucks versus Lions. Is that a rematch? Didn't the Lions beat the Bucks a playoff rematch last year? I want to say, but Bucks had a big win over Washington. Mayfield after getting that contract, he got paid again, and he looked really well for he did really well for the Buccaneers. And obviously the Lions are expected to do really well this year. I think that's going to be a good game. I think it's a measuring stick to what the Bucks really are this year. Because honestly, you have 5 teams every season since like the last 6 or 7 seasons. There's 5 teams that made the playoffs one season and didn't make it the next season. So you're looking teams, okay, what teams aren't making it this year? And Bucks are an easy one to say. I think this is a good measuring stick to see if the Bucks are for real. I hope that's going to be a pretty exciting game. I think the Lions are definitely up there competing with Dallas and Philadelphia for that number 2 spot. Would say competing with the Packers too. Obviously, Jordan Love being out for now. Packers are kind of off that radar. Niners versus Vikings. Vikings, Sam Darnold looking like he wants to play football again. I mean, starting for the Vikings did really well. I know. It's against the Giants. I know. But they went out there. They did probably what they were supposed to do. You were thinking Vikings are probably getting a top 5 pick now. That still may hold true with their backup quarterback, with Sam Darnold being in there probably for the rest of the season. I mean, for sure. There's a backup for the rest of the season. I'm assuming Sam Darnold sticks in that role. tough matchup against the 49ers. We'll see. And then Browns again, who I thought were going to give the Cowboys a little more competition. We'll see if they can get things back on track playing against the Jags, who have been disappointing the last few years. Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, I thought they were going to be competing for AFC championship after AFC championship. Not that they've been playing bad, but definitely disappointing, especially, Trevor Lawrence being, the best prospect since Peyton Manning. And I don't want to say bust. I mean, because it's hard to live up to that. I mean, he's played well. He's definitely been disappointing to this point, but I mean, he's still having them compete. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with that. Those are the notable ones that I'm looking forward to watching this week. Comment down below and let me know who your team is, what games you're watching, what you're keeping your eye on. And tell me if I miss any ones that should be good. We've been saying it for months, don't bet with your gut. Really, it's probably been over a year now. But check out Betalytics. Get help making your picks. Betalytics uses AI algorithms to run the numbers and make the most accurate picks possible. Use promo code PEAK1 for 25% off when you sign up today. Go to Betalytics.com to start betting smarter. All right, let's get into some college football. Still feels really exciting. Really officially week 3. I know some teams are probably playing their 4th game, but still new, still exciting right now. I'm starting to get into some good games. I know you still have some of these cupcake games, whatever. But first, let's talk a little bit college football realignment. And usually we hear some of these rumors first before anything officially happens, but this is official. Not that some of us wouldn't call this necessarily, because I know a couple of these teams we're talking about I thought should have happened a long time ago, but the Pac-12, who now really only consists Oregon State and Washington State, really like a Pac-2, right? The Pac-12 is going to remain alive for now. They will be adding Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and San Diego State, and taking them from I don't know, a couple of those Mountain West conference, maybe WAC conference. Boise State, I thought, should have been admitted to the Pac-12 last conference realignment. That's when Boise State was good and competing and beating Oklahoma and going against TCU and BCS bowls. They should have been added a while back, and it's kind of sad that it took the Pac-12 nearly folding for this to happen. Colorado State, sure. Why not? I know the Pac-12 is just reaching for schools right now. Fresno State, makes sense, obviously geographically. They're kind of in and out some years. They're not a power by any means. But a lot of conferences will have lower tier teams, and enter San Diego State, same similar situation. I'm thinking the Pac-12 doesn't want this to be, of course this doesn't happen until next season, 2025, but I think the idea, obviously this is going to be 6 teams, put them to 6. The idea is they're going to want to add some powers back now that they say, hey, we're still a good conference. I don't think you can call them a Power 5 conference anymore. I don't know what dictates officially, air quotes, a Power 5 conference. But I assume they were already stripped of that title, because really you're just moving teams up from lower tier conferences and mostly from the Mountain West. And I think, somebody on Facebook was commenting when we posted about this, asking, like, is this the end of the Mountain West Conference now? And I said, probably not. They're probably going to promote teams from the WAC conference, and maybe the WAC conference is over. I don't know. Maybe they move some teams into Division 1 or from the FCS level into, sort of how The AAC, the American Athletic Conference, basically was what the Conference USA was, because they, I think technically Conference USA switched to that, and then they remade Conference USA, because you had like SMU and UCF. Uh, Basically, Conference USA renaming themselves, and then Conference USA reforming and moving up teams from the Sun Belt and a couple of other lower tiers. Uh, and then you had more conference realignment, where the Big 12 is basically a lot of those old Conference USA teams. Like I said, UCF, Houston, and then it's just moving up more teams. Then you have UTSA and UTEP moving into that. UTEP might be in the WAC, but that's basically what you're adding in. Then Tarleton State entering in, and still from the FCS level, but moving into Division One. And I think that's just what you're doing, and it's kind of diluting it. I mean, I love seeing more teams thrown in the mix, obviously, but I think you might be diluting it, where the Big 12 is not what it used to be. It's still a pretty good conference. I mean, you can't say adding BYU and Houston and Colorado and to Utah. I mean, Utah's a really good ad, at least for now. You can't say adding those teams, even though there's more, quantity of teams will replace Texas OU. I mean, because right now you're looking at, I mean, dang, who comment down below, who is the, not this year best team, but who's like the most prolific program in TC? I mean, in a Big 12, is it TCU maybe? I don't know. I'm trying to roll through. I mean, it's pretty even keeled now. It's not like Texas OU just dominate that prestige wide. I mean, I may need to power up College Football 25 on my PS5 later and look at conference or team prestiges and see who's the higher one. But Big 12's there. I mean, I can still consider a Power 5 conference, because a lot of those teams, you have UCF, who just went undefeated a few years ago. TCU went to the national championship, although they got blown out. There's a lot of teams in the Big 12 that every 4 or 5 years they'll make a run. And I mean, and when remember TCU and Baylor, they were ranked like 5th and 7th or something like that in the rankings, and they were both left out of the playoff. I think if the Big 12 in a couple of years can just have a few of those teams make a run at the same time, and you have like 3 teams in the top 10 or something, that's not that crazy to think of. I mean, they're still obviously not competing with Big 10. Big 10 SEC is kind of the top tier now. Big 12 might be a step ahead of ACC right now, because you thought Florida State was that dominating team in the ACC. Obviously, it's not panning out. I thought SMU might make a run. They still could make a run for an ACC championship. That didn't work out. They just lost. So, I think you could still say there's a Power 4, but those top 2 have definitely gained some lead. There's some space in between the top 2 and the bottom 2 of that 4 tier. But back to the Pac-12, I think, I saw a rumor, I saw something that Stanford and Cal kind of maybe go back now. Like they might be interested in going back. I think more than anything, because I don't think Stanford and Cal are going to win the ACC this year. So maybe they just don't like traveling so much that, I don't know, maybe they move back again. That's not going to be like, hey, Pac-12 is back. But you get that momentum going. You add 4 teams. You get a couple of, really prestigious schools like Stanford and Cal back in, and then you wait for somebody not to be happy. Maybe UCLA doesn't like getting beat up in the Big 10. I think we'll talk Oregon here in a minute. I think Oregon will be fine for this year, but, they're a top 10 team, and, honestly, I don't think they should be, but, we'll get into that later. And, maybe they get beaten up by Ohio State, Michigan, and go back. I'm not sure. So this is definitely in the step in the right direction. It obviously doesn't say they're back, but I think the fact that they're adding teams even to this caliber, It's good for the Pac-12. It's good for college football for that conference to survive. You might say, hey, kind of knocks them down a tier now. They're, basically the Mountain West with a couple of decent schools like Oregon State and Washington State. Um, but overall, I think we need to give props to Oregon State and Washington State because we thought, like, what are they doing? Go join the Big 12 or the Big 10 or whoever will have you and get that money. But they stayed and like, no, we're going to stay with the Pac-12. We thought, well, that'll last a year, but you know, um, next year, Oregon State, Washington State have a good chance of winning that conference. And that's weird. How's that going to work? So one of these, Oregon State or Washington State's going to be crowned Pac-12 champions this year. One conference game. Wow. Okay, let's look at some of the matchups for today. Obviously, being a DFW-based sports network, we're going to talk about some of the local teams in Texas. You have Texas A&M at Florida. See, Texas A&M, yeah, they had a game last week against McNeese. Did what they were supposed to do, but let's see if they can bounce back after a couple of weeks ago. That close loss to Notre Dame. With that Notre Dame game that loss looks a little worse now for Notre Dame losing last week to Northern Illinois at home, nonetheless. Tulane at number 15, Oklahoma. UTSA at number 2, Texas. See if Texas can continue to roll. I know UTSA just lost to Texas State last week. Although don't sleep on Texas State. Texas State, I believe it was Thursday night, played Arizona State. They were up 21-7 at one point. They ended up losing the game. Arizona State came back as they should have. But Texas State, that's a pretty decent program right now. Okay, and I want to talk number 9 Oregon. They're playing Oregon State. Usually you see this rivalry week, but of course Oregon State in the Pac-12, Oregon now in the Big 10. So you're going to see this very early. And Oregon might be on upset alert. I mean, both teams are 2-0, but Oregon's been struggling lately. They beat Idaho 24-14. Idaho. Not Iowa, they beat Idaho. And is Idaho a FBS team? Or are they still an FCS team? I'm trying to think. I'm not sure. I know they play in don't they play like in that little dome? It's like a little bit bigger than a high school stadium, and it's just like that little silo looking dome. I want to say that's Idaho. But yeah, Oregon beat them 24-14, and they narrowly escaped Boise State 37-34. That was a really good game. Maybe Boise State's going to make a run this year, but that was a good game. Oregon should have beat them by a lot more. So maybe vibes of Colorado last year, where there was a lot of. I mean, Colorado wasn't this highly ranked, but a lot of hype. And then Colorado, barely beat Colorado State in double overtime, and then started 3-0. They'd beaten TCU, in a shootout, but then you figured out, right after TCU's championship run, championship game appearance, and then you found out later on, that wasn't that good of a win because TCU kind of fell off this year, or this was last year. So kind of those vibes I'm getting. I don't know. Oregon State's a rivalry game, so it's hard to say, hey, it's gonna Oregon should take care of business. So I don't know. Keep an eye on that game. I don't know. I'm going to put Oregon on upset alert, but look at it. Keep an eye on that game. Watch it. And of course, we have UCF at TCU. Need double check. Obviously, both teams are in the Big 12. But the fact that they're playing doesn't necessarily mean it's a conference game. If they were previously scheduled, because Baylor played Utah a couple weeks ago, and they said that was not an official conference game because it was scheduled a few years ago. So they didn't count it towards conference. I think we're late enough in the season. This is probably an official Big 12 game. But UCF is a newcomer to the Big 12, so who knows? But I think that's going to be a really good game. Don't sleep on UCF at TCU, because both kind of, those are the two examples I used earlier. TCU made a run at the championship a couple of years ago. UCF went undefeated, and they claim a 2017 national championship. So within, their recent I say powerhouse, but their recent powerhouse seasons. Um, and I think they're kind of in that transitional period, middle of the road right now. I think it could go either way. Obviously, uh, TCU has some tough games in the Big 12, as does UCF. So if they lose a few games, they might. I don't think they'll be as bad as that record, but I think they have a chance to do something. Like I don't know if we're going to talk playoffs or anything like that with these schools. They're not even ranked at the moment. 12-team playoff. I mean, at this point, you don't know. You can't definitively say half of the teams in college football are completely out of it like you could when there was only four. It's like really realistically the last 5-6 years at this point in the season, you're saying like there's 10 teams that have a chance, really. But I think there might be 30 teams that have a chance to make that 12-team playoff. But don't sleep on this game. I think it's going to be a good game. I think they're very evenly matched, and I think these two teams could, I think at some point both of these teams will be ranked in the top 25 at some point. Played a lot of this is what happens early in the season. You play a lot of these, I'm gonna say cupcake, but you play a lot of these interconference games and just matchups like you'll see Texas teams playing or regional teams playing. But I think we'll really figure out what these teams are here in the next few weeks because they're starting to play legitimate schools, legitimate competition in the Big 12. All right, guys, that's pretty much going to do it for this episode. Thanks for watching this episode of the Leadoff. However, you are tuning in right now. If you're watching YouTube, if you're listening on one of our many platforms, podcast platforms, appreciate you. Hit that like button if you like the show. If not, hit it twice. And don't forget to subscribe, follow, whatever the correct vernacular is for how you are listening. Comment. Tell us how we're doing. Again, we're going to have exclusive content coming up if you want to, subscribe for a couple of bucks a month. Hopefully next week we'll have, we're off next Friday for Friday Night Football. No game next week. So we should have the full crew back on Saturday next week. Again, subscribe, like, share, do all that great thing. All those great things. I'm Ashton Nix. Have a great Saturday and a great weekend, guys.